La 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 la. Need music. Ooh. What about this? Ooh. Hi, Kareem. GMG? What's that stand for? Okay. Getting started, sorry. I was just setting up music. Whew. Good morning, gang. I like it. I like referring to us as a gang. Like whenever I hate that whenever I say like hey guys or something, it feels like it excludes women, right? Because you're always saying guys. Our language is very male dominated. So gang is a good one. Hey Toki. Here earliest time, yeah, we're gonna do a painting. So you start right at the beginning. Good morning, gang. I feel like I can say that. And it sounds good. All right. Drop that to 50. This jacket gonna get in my way? Probably not. Okay. So I'm getting started. I'm just looking at the guy we're gonna draw and try to get a grasp on what I'm about to draw. It's always good to take a moment instead of just being like bam, 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 nose. My teacher would always tell us that in figure drawing class, to take a minute, observe your subject so you know what lines you're going to put down. I mean, at this point, I've drawn a lot of heads that are coming straight at me, so not that I'm an expert at them by any means, but the training aren't going to be crazy. Yeah, I hope so. I was having this discussion with my wife in the car. Actually, that's going to be too much. Feels wrong. About basically how certain artists study. There's 3 artists that I compare a lot. Like, in how they improve. Wow, it was a really lopsided freaking head. One is Miles Johnson. He's... God, come on. He's a classically trained artist from an atelier school. A lot of all of these artists, arguably most artists, are self-taught. Anyone who's good, because school won't get you all the way there. I love Miles Johnson. Yeah, he's awesome. I'm not as big of a fan of like a lot of his new like really out there stuff. I liked it more when he was like aiming for the concept art thing, because that's just my thing. But he's still amazing at what he does. Jesus, this is really lopsided. Okay, what is happening here? So these angles are not angling. I either need to go less wide with this or more wide with the other one. And I think the answer will be more wide with the other one. Surrealism is my favorite art movement. GM or GN? Good morning or good night? Good morning, gang, or good night, gang? Is that what you're saying? So hard. Surrealism is my favorite art. What is surrealism? Is that what he does? Surrealism art. Surrealism is art, culture, movement that developed in Europe, which artists aim to allow the unconscious mind to express itself. Oh, okay, so that's what he does now, for sure. He does some really cool surrealist art, where he's drawn like heads inside people's heads and stuff like that. Yeah, he's incredible. His skill with a pencil is like really insane. Sorry, Miles Johnson distraction. Yeah, the reason why I went to an atelier school in Sweden was because of him. I literally reached out to him and messaged him and asked him about the school. And it's the same school he went to. I was so unfortunate to... He ended up going back to teach there after I had already left. So I was like, damn, could have met him in person. But, you know, another time. Why am I screwing up this head so badly? Okay. Honestly, sometimes when you're really badly messing up, I just start over again. This is sad. The training arc. The training arc is not always fire. It's just bad. That one's a little bit better. Okay. This eraser is too big. Oh god. There's always some struggle before the final power-up. It's still I do this all the time though. Like everybody has their tendencies of which way they like push and pull things. So I think I'm gonna make this a little bit more like that. And that's a little bit better. I always make the head too wide, so I'll opt for not so wide this time. All right. There we go. The jaw is not wide. I don't know what you're trying to say, but it's okay. Let me make mistakes. So yeah, sorry, Kareem. I was talking to my wife in the car. I always compare these three artists. One is Miles Johnson. He's very classically trained. Second is she goes either by Arucelli or Night Zhang. I believe she works for Riot now. Very incredible artist. She has videos on Twitch. If you ever want to see her draw, but literally she just draws everything from imagination. Pretty incredible to watch her work her magic. Because, well, she's exceptional at what she does. She's not really classically trained. She did go to art school, I believe. But she obviously drew a lot from imagination and got very good at it. And then the last is Ray, who's down here in this little art box, who is, I would argue, one of the best artists ever. Hey, Four. Good. I'm glad you came today, because I actually had something I wanted to talk to you about. Did I accidentally turn on caps lock? What's going on? Okay. I'll figure that out later. I think I drew the features too high up in the head. Maybe not. Maybe it's just the nose that's too long. Wait, Jacob. No, it's nothing you did. It was, it's something that I've always been curious about. But maybe you can offer your insights and your opinion. I was just about to start talking about it, actually. I was saying that I compare, usually when I'm trying to figure out how to move forward with my artwork, I compare 3 artists: Miles Johnston, Arucelli or Night Zhang, you can see her stuff on Twitter, and Ray, who's in this bottom left-hand corner. And the reason I compare them is because they're all exceptional, but different kind of learning paths, I would say. Arucelli is probably closer to Ray, but Miles is more classically trained from an atelier. Because I was wondering about doing a study today. Is the head still too wide, or am I just making everything too... I feel like that's uber cheating right there. Redraw. And it feels like everything's over to the right. Yeah, you're gonna come over here. Oops. Sorry, I'm like focused, but also trying to go deep into a discussion. So give me 1 second. A study never hurts. No, I don't think so either. It's the reason why I contemplate the study is when I look at their work, less Miles and more Arucelli and Ray, you hardly ever see any studies from them, right? And I know that they've studied. Like, it's impossible to get by with zilch, 0. You would have had to suffer so much just trying to draw things from your head. And there's no way you'd be able to learn things like the skull and stuff like that without literally looking at like a picture or book. Or you could like kill someone and open them up. Like, there's just no way. That's why, you know, the old masters, like the super old masters, would go and crack open bodies and stuff. Like, I know that they had to have studied. But the question is, how much did they do that? Where they really spent more of their time problem solving from imagination and not really looking to reference anymore. And did they always do, you know, at some point after like the initial look at certain things, did they just start doing like their own stuff and then having reference up to help them? Or did they just go without it entirely? It's very, I honestly, because I've seen Ray is like impossible to get a question asked because she's just aloof. Like, unless you catch her at a convention, and then who knows if she would answer the question. I don't think you'll ever have that question answered. Did I do that right? Okay, something like that. If you draw the same thing several times, you tend to be able to draw without reference after a while. That's a misconception. I mean, yeah, you can get a little bit of the way, but I don't think, or it's not even that I don't think, I know from personal experience, even if you draw stuff from reference 100 times, by no means does that mean you'll be able to draw that thing without it. Feels better. I think the sign of skills when you start to develop. Hey, Akil. When you start to develop an ability to exclude or stylize aspects of what you have practiced. Yeah, it's a misconception. What I'm saying is, being able to draw something just because you've drawn it from reference, like, yeah, you can remember parts of it, but you're not going to be able to draw it well or remember a lot of it. I've drawn from references my whole life. If that actually was all that it took, I'd be a lot better than where I was now. And I've seen that in other artists' work as well. That's why when you look at classically trained, because Miles is an exception, because he actually studied outside of his classically trained stuff, because I think originally he was trying to be a concept artist and work in like entertainment, because he did some like fantasy cards and things like that, and then he switched to like what Kareem said, the surrealist art. I think he had like a spiritual awakening or something. He just doesn't do that stuff anymore. But beside the point, Miles practiced a lot from. Either we're talking about different things, or you're legit saying that repetitive practice doesn't work. Not saying that repetitive practice doesn't work. I'm saying that studying only from reference, you can still get good. Sorry, I'm splitting off into multiple tangents here. If you look at an atelier's artist's work, right, they can draw and paint really, really well. Like, it doesn't, their skill is still high, but they can't do it without something in front of them. Like, they need something there to look at. If you look at like anything in their sketchbook where they try to draw something like a figure that they've drawn 1,000,000 times, and they try to draw it by themselves in their sketchbook, it will look terrible, because they've never tried to do that by themselves, right? They have no ability to imagine. Imagination is like it's a separate skill. We're definitely talking about different things. Okay. Sorry. It's a complex topic. It's not like because I feel like a lot of artists who get really good at the imagination drawing omit the fact that they drew from imagination. They're just like, oh, I drew a lot of people, right? If they were really good at drawing people from imagination, they're just like, I drew a lot of people. I'm like, okay, how did you actually do that? Did you look at photos of people? did you draw from imagination? And usually they give you some kind of non-answer that doesn't help you, which is super frustrating. Okay, I have a feeling this is going to... You'll think I made the nose too long. How did I do that again? Freaking hell. At this point, I'm gonna fix it in the painting. Or I'll at least figure this shit out first. That's too much. I definitely know what you mean. I know people who are skilled in imitating reference, but that's it. I was talking more about repetition like animators and comic artists do. Hey, Jack. Oh, so you're saying you meant like literally, you were kind of talking about more drawing from imagination. Like you... You were talking about repetitive practice from imagination. 4. What is Kareem saying? Basically, they study references and try to draw something similar for imagination and simply to practice. Like a good daily routine I found was 1 hour of observational studies and then 1 hour of imaginative drawings of what you studied. Well, that's the tricky part, right? Is like I look at some of the artists that are really good, and I like, it could be that they're doing studies that we don't see, right? But whenever I see work from them, it's always personal work. Oh, it's so tempting. I just want to see what this looks like. Bloop. You know what? I'm trying to paint, so I am gonna forgive myself for doing that and just get this going. I do not need to be spending eternity. Oop, should have brought this in with it. Oh crap. I can at least redraw that. It looks so wonky now. God, I love it. Hey, Juno. Made homemade fresh egg pasta today. Fresh if you don't count the 2 days the dough spent in the fridge, stuffed with chicken and cheese. It's very important to practice with intention. Just copying a reference without trying to understand what you're drawing won't be very useful. It's to improve definitely, but slower. Yeah, no, that's true. Drawing with intention is important. I think a lot of people know that they'll be that they're gonna make like crappy art, so they kind of come in here and they scribble and stuff. Just like, you still have to practice as if you were doing a piece of art that you loved that came out good. Oops. Alright, why do you look so freaking weird, huh? Like that. This dude's got tiny ears. Weird, but we're gonna do this. Oops, what just happened? Okay, okay. Yay. I think whenever I decide to do this today, I want to feel like I learned something for it. That's the key, isn't it? That is literally the question I'm trying to answer for. When I started thinking about why people do studies and stuff, like, what are you actually learning from it? Like, I'm starting to lean away from ever doing a master study again, because I asked myself that question. I'm like, what am I actually getting out of this? Okay, this is obviously fucked up, but oh. Maybe this needs to be yeah, if you don't learn something useful or study, is it really a study then? Yeah, exactly. And that is really what I'm trying to figure out is like, did these artists realize that they're not getting much from these studies? And they realize that even though it was much harder, did they realize that doing stuff for imagination and just literally problem solving, like taking this away and going back to my, you know, the Kirito thing that I did and just trying to problem solve for myself, like, did they have a more difficult time but figured it out? It's kind of like, I used this analogy when I was talking to my wife. Have you ever seen those videos where you see those bodybuilders at the gym, and they're like doing that weight where you like pull it in, or the one where you pull down, and then they bring in the rock climbers, and then they do the same weight, and they don't look like the super buff gym dudes. They look kind of like almost like dad bods, but like muscular a little. But they can do more weight with less effort than the bodybuilders. Have you guys ever seen that? I feel like that happens with artists who have figured out like this drawing from imagination thing. It's like they're the rock climbers. They have this like underlying skill that people who have used, you know, tons of reference, I don't really know. I don't want to compare it and make it seem like one is better than the other. It's a personal preference of what you're trying to learn and how you want to draw. Like it's it's complicated. I don't want to say that one is better than the other. It's just something that I am trying to do for myself. And I don't know how they're doing it. Haven't seen it, but I've heard that bodybuilders really only focus on the appearance of muscles and not actual strength. Oh, right, because you need some fat when lifting weights so the muscles don't literally pop out of your body. Rock climbers are very developed back muscles because it's the muscle group they train the most, so it's very developed for them. Yeah, so in the same sense, like if you compare this to artists, like the people who toil away with this imagination stuff can draw the figure from like any angle, any pose. And even Araceli talks about this, how sometimes she doesn't even know what she's drawing, but she's drawn it so much by herself without any reference that she knows that if she draws the eye here, you know, and she makes like she says that if she makes like an errant mark, like a stray mark, like something goes off like that, she'll turn it into hair, or whatever, because she knows how to problem solve off of her errors, essentially, because she's drawn so much from imagination. And there's like this, it's like this hidden skill that you don't expect, whereas somebody who's used reference a lot has less of that ability to transform something, transform the reference into something even more magical. Not that they can't, but they have less freedom and less flexibility to do that. And they could still do it, but they would need more reference, more inspiration. So it is very interesting, and I'm always curious how those kinds of people study so that I can get there. And I really still don't quite get it. I think it's really just about doing the endless amount of problem solving, but I would like to understand it more. And that's why I posed the question, because I was like, I wonder if for anybody else has dealt with this in their time, because I feel like it's definitely something that all artists think about and struggle with. Like even right now, like the way that I'm drawing this guy, like I'm designing it at the same time. I'm not drawing everything exactly the same because I don't want to just draw him in realistic mode. Like I want to draw it in the way that I want to draw it. Artistry, so confusing. So for art, it means they practice drawing for imagination, let that skills highly developed for them. Yeah. That's me having to make sure my characters didn't get underbite when I wasn't looking. Whenever you draw anime characters, you are already making decisions by not copying the face proportions exactly, but you still keep the likeness. Yeah, exactly. It's definitely more challenging to design something than go into that realism mode, and sometimes you need to draw it in a way that you don't like, so that you can slowly like maneuver your way over to the way that you do like it, you know, because life isn't anime. Thankfully we have tons of references to look on, but like if you're studying something specific like anatomy, you know, all those people, like you could study from artists that already do anatomy in a stylized anime way, but you don't have the knowledge that they have, so you need to actually go into those books, like study anatomy and things like that. It's a little wonky when I turn it, but I think we are pretty good here. That we can start. I'm trying this, dude. Bloop. Something like that. Okay. Oh, wait, his hair. I'm dumb. I apologize if anybody asks any questions, by the way. I'm going to be very preoccupied with this topic. Okay. It took a hot minute, but I think it ended up being pretty good. Ooh, it kind of looks like it. Oh, you're back, honey?
Yep.
Everything okay?
Yep.
Sorry, my wife just came home. Still think the nose is a little long, actually. But we'll fix that up in the painting process. Hi, Eric. Okay. Let's fill this sucker up. Bloop. That's the layer. Okay, good. After I fill this in, I'll go through the chat, make sure I didn't miss any questions and stuff, and chat with you guys more about this, because I'm curious to know what you all think as well. I actually saw that our Jelly has a live stream later tonight, although it might be morning for some of you. I think it's at 7 p.m. So I was actually going to stop by and ask her about this. See if she has any answers. The problem with this question too, I think I mentioned, was that a lot of artists just don't know that they've been doing this. It's that whole like curse of knowledge thing. Like, you're so far removed from your time as a beginner that you don't remember what you did, so you're giving advice but you're omitting important facts. Not because you're trying to be like an ass and gatekeep or something, it's just because you don't remember and you think that's what you did. And you really, I feel you really gotta get somebody to think very intentionally about how they went about with their practice. And even then, you may still not get an answer. So maybe I'll get an answer, maybe I won't. We'll find out. Hey Ryuzaki. It'd be so fun if the live stream comment had the option to include pictures. I drew something today. Well, soon we will have the Discord. You can always drop it in there. I'm sorry today that you won't be able to share. What'd you draw, Jack? shapes. Okay. Yeah, his nose is a little tall. We will fix that. Bloop. Oh wait, I'm dumb. I'm gonna have to wait. Okay. Now we're just gonna do this. Okay. I think that works. Getting these proportions right is always challenging. Okay, that feels good to me. Hi, Skull Seeker. Okay. I will pause there, look at the chat. Oh, my hey, Nikki. Go through that ugly phase, do it. You guys still see me, right? My iPad just like died? Something? So make sure you all are still here. Just give me a thumbs up or something. Oh, okay, people are still chatting. Should be fine. Ooh. Alright, we'll take our standing break. Okay, thank you for it. Space here. Take these headphones off. We have a 10-minute standing break starting now. Okay. Thank you, Ryu. Is the ref a Ray 17 pick? Yeah, it is, Stokie. It's her. She had a whole book where she did JoJo stuff. Actually, I have an art book. It's really good. And yeah, Skull Seeker. It's Ray. Ray 17. Nikki, I'm glad you're going through the ugly phase. I'm trying to do the same thing. And we're about to go into the ugly, like super ugly phase for painting, because once I put in the flat colors, like I genuinely don't know what to do after that. So trying to figure that out is where it really gets a little challenging and gross looking. Sitting in that discomfort is never fun, but you know, there are fun pieces around it. It's always the first cut of the render, getting the basic shadow map. Yeah, exactly. Because you're trying to figure out the colors and everything's not really there yet. And when you're like an experienced artist, just putting the light and the shadow, it looks so good. It doesn't take them very long at all, because their color matching skills are just so good, and their value matching skills and everything. Yeah, when you're new to this stuff, like your your color combinations look wonky. It takes time for it to like really start to be fleshed out. And you have to trust yourself a little bit, because sometimes you'll put the light color in or the shadow or something and it looks really wrong. But then it starts to take shape later. We all gotta face the ugly phase at one point. Oh, you gotta go, Akil? Alright, it's all good. Good luck at school. Jino, are you still here? You asked a question a while back. I think I wasn't able to get to it. If you're still here, I'll answer it. Jacob, kind of get frustrated during the drawing process of studying when I'm trying to pick up the unique stuff in artist illustration and can't seem to use it. I mean, you're not going to be able to use everything that like an artist, like if you're studying from another artist, this is again, this goes back to our like previous conversation, but like when you do a master study from an artist, what are you actually learning? Do you remember in school where they had you read a book, and then they have you like try to interpret like meaning from a book, and like sometimes they just go way too far. Like the carpet is blue because this character was feeling sad, and then if you actually ask the actual author, it'd just be like, I thought blue was a cool color. And there could be two things going on here, right? Like it could be that the author is so good that they inherently are attaching meaning to colors and designs and things that they write about, or they're actually just serious that it really was just because they wanted this tapestry or whatever to be blue. But when we try to spin our own interpretation on someone's knowledge, it's not like we think we know what they're doing, but it's not the truth. We can only get so far in understanding somebody else's artwork. We don't have the knowledge that they do. So the way that you even create a master study is going to be potentially different from the way that they created theirs. So you're not really learning their process. And it got me thinking, like, what do we actually take away from a master study? Because I'm just following what Jacob said about getting frustrated. The drawing process of studying when trying to pick out the unique stuff in artist illustrations and you can't seem to do it. Authorial intent doesn't always match the view of the audience. Each person has a unique way of seeing the same thing. Yeah, exactly. And that's true for art. So I did start asking myself, like, what do you really get out of a master study? Are they worth doing? Because you're not coming at it from the same place of knowledge, right? I really think I don't have an answer to this yet, so I'm still figuring it out. But I do think that one of the things that we pull from, if like you ever did a master study, is more of how they approach their design language, and that how much you get out of that is how much you actually can understand about what design language is, because if you're a super beginner, you're not going to have any idea what the hell that even means. So you're not going to look for it. You're just trying to copy stuff. Practicing perspective contributes to better and faster results in your art than practicing anatomy. What do you guys think? I mean, I don't know if it contributes better and faster, and it depends what you're doing. If you're trying to draw a figure, I mean, perspective is important, as anatomy. I don't know if it's really a question you need to answer. It doesn't really matter. You need to learn both to make it good, so. I think when you're asking what contributes to better and faster results, it's more about how you go about the process rather than what you're, the subject of what you're studying. Yeah, yeah, that's, you practice perspective, you'll get good at perspective. Anatomy, you'll get better at anatomy. It's more about how you go about it, right? Which we were talking about before, like the atelier students that only draw perspective from like things that they're looking at, or only draw anatomy from things they're looking at, and they want to become like a concept artist. That's not going to work because you need to study from imagination to get good at that. Wow, a lot of you guys have never done master's studies? I guess it was just me then. It's something that we're taught in school to do them. Maybe it just got like drilled into me more so than other artists. And it is also a very atelier school thing as well. You reference line decker a few times with Think Big. In master studies, mostly to try to understand a specific thing that I like about the artist. Interesting. I remember it was often talked about on the concept art forums. Oh, conceptart.org, yeah. Yeah, it was. A lot of people did that. It's a pretty regular aspect of learning that people advocate for. But I'm trying to like break the norms. Like a lot of people think that tracing is really good for helping you learn, and when you tell them it's like, if I ever say it's not good, which I did once in a short, people argue that people have done it before and they're really good now. I'm just like, that doesn't prove that this is a good practice. It just proves that other people were doing it. Nikki, I've done a few, but usually go in with a goal like either color or shape design or something. It's easy to get overwhelmed. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, in reality, I've only done a few. I would say like less than a dozen. But yeah, it's good to come at it with something that you want to take from it, rather than just sort of mindlessly trying to copy it. But also, what even makes an artist count as a master? Like, all master studies I saw was from fine arts, but what if I consider my favorite manga? Yeah, no, that's not really an issue for it. It's more like it's just semantics. It's a master study is just whoever you think is really good, just try to copy it as best as you can. That's just the general idea. It's just called a master study. I think, art is subjective, right? So it's up to a certain point. Like if you wanted to work in the industry, you can't say art is subjective and then try to get a job at, Naughty Dog designing really realistic characters, and you can't draw anything, right? So But yeah, a master study is just copying whoever you like, and it's a one-to-one copy. If you trace enough, you're bound to pick up a trick or two. So tracing comes with, it's not something that I try to talk about a lot because it's so controversial. But tracing comes with its own set of problems. First of all, it's not really a good way to learn. Like if you want to build a little bit of confidence in making those lines, sure, that's an okay way to do that. But tracing is not a good way to learn, just simply from coming from a scientific angle, right? Like I've read a lot of books about how you learn, what's the most effective ways to learn. When they find in a lot of these studies that they do, right, that learning that's easy doesn't take you far, if anywhere. Learning has to be, or excuse me, like practice and how you learn has to be somewhat challenging for you to see momentum from it. You should read, if this stuff interests you, you should read, I think it's like The Surprising Way We Learn or something like that. I'd have to actually get the book. I can link it when we have a Discord. But yeah, learning that is easy doesn't do much for you. It has to be challenging. I mean, you can see it in action. People make the most strides when they really try to come out of their comfort zone. And they don't get frustrated doing it. If you get so frustrated because you've made things so challenging, you're not going to want to do it, right? So there is a balance. One of the other problems with tracing, right, is that you have to make things like lower opacity, right? Or you're putting tracing paper on top. So you're not really seeing what you're tracing very well. You're already kind of like, you're taking down your visibility, and it's just making it more difficult for you to draw the thing when you could just draw right next to it. The actual practice of it will be more challenging, and you'll get more out of it. There's more to it, but essentially that really is the gist. Tracing is not challenging, so it doesn't really do much for you. It doesn't help your understanding of things, and you will get much more out of it simply by just drawing right next to something rather than trying to draw on top of it. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I like if I was having a super hard time, and you're working digitally, but I was having a super hard time getting a drawing right, and I really wanted to see what it was that was wrong, I would just like grab the portrait or whatever, put it on top of my drawing, and then like turn it on and off so I could see where I was screwing up so bad. So that can be sometimes very helpful, but I never really traced ever. I have a philosophy of everything you draw, even if it's personal art. I don't know if I understand that. I guess tracing would be good only if you decompose the subject into simple shapes. Yeah, that's, again, like, you'd be better off doing that next to it because you're going to have trouble seeing the shapes just because of the lowered opacity or the tracing paper on top. It just doesn't, it does so little for you that it's really more, I think tracing is more about making you a little bit more confident to do it on your own. Yeah, tracing on autopilot where you don't make decisions doesn't really help you. Oh, we're done with our break. Okay. The only benefit I see for tracing is if you want to practice something specific. Like you want to practice painting in color, you should trace the subject and just focus on the paintings and colors. Yeah, I've thought about that before too. Is my audio too loud? I just saw it redline. I dropped it down a little bit. I don't really like to trace because ironically I'm too lazy for it. I feel like it's not fun either, right? Like, I know it can be cool in the beginning because you are like, oh my god, I just made this kind of thing. So again, I think it's really just a confidence builder, not so much helping you learn. If you trace 1,000 figures, you know how to draw a figure probably, but if you do 10 studies of a figure and try to understand, you get the same result. I don't know about that. I get what you're trying to say. I don't know if that's how it would work, but it's an interesting theory. Okay. Actually, let's go for you. Shoop, shoop, shoop. Oh, no, no, no. Stop. Stop the presses. Okay, there we go. Yeah, if I want to do a study only focus on practicing colors, I don't want to waste 2 hours fussing with getting the drawing base done right. At the point I just have no energy left for color practice. Yeah, I mean that's true, but you're gonna learn more. Aren't you not? Oops. And you know, when you get good at this stuff, or you know, better, you get so much faster at drawing and stuff like that. I don't think it's really that much of a hindrance to draw it out. I definitely do remember feeling the same way. I even thought about it today. I was like, I want to paint, so I don't want to spend, you know, I just spent an hour trying to figure out the drawing aspect. But like I also got a lot out of it too. So I don't necessarily think that's I suppose it's personal preference. But I feel like the experience, you take away from the experience. Also, like, it doesn't leave you room to design and make it yours, right? If you're just tracing the subject so that you can paint it, because then you just have to redraw the whole thing to design it, right? So again, you're robbing yourself of the experience. Go back. What is happening? There we go. I'm 34. I don't have enough time to learn more. It's frustrating to me. I know myself enough that I'm not going to get anything out of it. Besties. Yeah, I mean, that's why I said it's personal preference of what you're trying to get out of what you're doing, right? I'm trying to come at it from helping people get better at art and become that professional level that you see in games and movies and all that kind of stuff. I'd rather separate each subject matter to practice in different things and try to shove in perspective, blah, 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 in one piece. Yeah, it's too much for my ADHD. No, and that's not a bad thing to do. I mean, you kind of have to in some sense. Like, you're always doing multiple things when you're coming at it, but you can focus on different aspects of it. That's why, you know, being a beginner is so hard, because you feel like there's 100 different things you have to know at once. And you somehow have to learn them like one at a time. It's hard to speak to everybody's experience, right? Because everyone's going to want to do different things. I want to practice drawing hands. I can't let myself not fuss about coloring them, for example, because my goal is to draw hands. Yeah, I mean, that's perfectly okay. Nope. More color. The dreaded ugly stage. I hate it. I hate it so much. Yeah, guys, I can see that it's tilted, but yeah, try to not backseat draw. I know it's difficult. I do have to figure this stuff out on my own. If I ask you guys, you're more than welcome to, you know, jump in. But if I don't ask you, please contain your rage for my terrible art, and I will hopefully get to it. Yeah, it looks wonky when I turn it. Maybe it is just the eye. So all of that has to come down. Maybe not. Oops. Thank you, Jacob. Nikki, thank you. We got this. Learn to simplify complex subjects to simple forms to make it easy for you to remember those shapes and move them in space. Back to the point of imaginative drawing. I think something else worth mentioning about this is construction. But yeah, for sure. I think his eyes look irresistible. Sorry. I mean, that is what I'm trying to figure out essentially, is like how much did some of those artists that I really love actually study from things, and how much did they do from imagination, where they tried to really work out that construction. Like that's why they can draw anything from any pose without having to look up a reference first, because they've problem solved enough to be able to do that without without assistance from a photo. Black. All right, from here on out. Seriously, this is the worst part, to show a live audience, especially working on developing your process. You're super brave. Yeah, I definitely do. There's a little hesitation when I'm on stream with stuff like this, because it is super embarrassing. to go through the like ugly phase where it's really awkward, and I genuinely like the Kirito one that I did the other day. I had no idea what I was doing. I started like petting areas because I genuinely just have no idea. Because you do have to think these stuff through sometimes. We're gonna resist the urge, chat. Let him struggle. Thanks for. When will the Discord be available? So I thought about this. I think I'm gonna do the end of March. I wanted to do the beginning, but I am going to Mexico. My wife really wanted to visit, and I've never been. So we are going to Mexico in 2 weeks, 13th to the 17th, and I'd rather not be gone just before the Discord launches, so I'm gonna wait till I'm back. So let's put a tentative date on. I can make it all ready to go, and then I'll just launch it when I come back. So we can put a tentative date on the 18th. It might be the week after, but I'll say the 18th as a tentative date. You should launch it, let it fester, and it gets fire away. Thank you. Alright. Where's my brush? What is happening? Okay, there we go. Why? So the tricky part of what I'm thinking about right now is color. I actually had an interesting breakthrough with color. I had to write it all down, so I might not be able to articulate it very well. But how you do color, I think, because I'm literally trying to understand it myself, so I don't entirely listen to my advice, but I'm always confused by art books that teach color, everything. The most that I know is that when you have cool light, you have warm shadows. If you have warm light, you have cool shadows. And I was always confused because people always talk about, you know, if you have warm light, it's always going to be like the yellowy orange stuff. But color is relative to what's next to it. So in theory, not entirely true, any color can be cool depending on what's next to it. And any color can be warm depending on what's next to it. I should say almost any color. Because there are colors that are just like the hottest colors, right? They can't be cooler next to something because they're the highest tier of hot, warm. Yeah, 4. Let me do what my sorry explanation, then you can jump in if you want. Color is extremely subjective in that sense, because you do have to figure out if, like, you basically decide that this is, like, I could decide right now if this skin color was cool or warm, and whatever I put next to it will determine whether or not it's cool or warm, right? Because if I decide that this is cool and I want warm shadows, like I would maybe do something that might be too saturated, like that. Again, I'm bad with color, so excuse me, right? And we'll drop in the nose shadow or whatever. Now, if you look at these colors like next to each other off to the side, now this is cool and the shadow is warm, right? But if I decide what is happening? Why is that color different? Okay, there we go. Boop, boop, boop. If I decide that the skin color is warm right now, and I want the shadows to be cool, up in the other direction. I think this works, so let me make sure. This is just doing really quick shadows. And now I have oops. This is warm and this is cool. I could exaggerate it a little bit more so that it's more obvious what is cool and what is warm. That one's a little bit more obvious, even though I wouldn't probably make it that color. So color is very much the color relationships are a decision that you make. And it's not something that I really understood. Making the background more neutral color will help you with the values as well. Oh, that's actually a good point, and it's something that I usually do, so I am going to do that now. It's one piece of advice I will take. Why can't I move 2 layers at once? I've never tried to do that before. I guess I'll just move those. Oh shit. Can I seriously not move 2 layers at once? Ah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, we'll do a neutral color like they've got here. We'll give it. And well, again, I have to understand the relationship that I'm going to do. I think I'll lean towards a cool. Wanted the blend brush. Yeah, keeping things white can really screw with your perception of color, because again, color is relative to what's around it, so even the background color will mess you up. If you're not careful. So we'll go with that for now. So the cool light warm shadows is not something I would apply in every setting. It's usually the case of the light setting. Can't see the difference. Sorry, Jack. Your eye becomes more sensitive to color temperatures as you do more like painting and drawing. So don't be worried if you can't see the difference. Like obviously you can see the difference between, you know, saturated blue and really orangey red. Like this is hotter and this is cooler. But eventually you'll be able to tell subtle differences between, like, I'm just going to choose random ass colors here. Like this and this, right? Like the left one, the creamy one is warmer, this is cooler. It's just something you get sensitive to as time goes on. Warm light versus cool shadows, the same thing, but opposite. The shadows aren't literally blue. Yeah, exactly. They look cooler because the lights are very warm and saturated. So essentially it's more about saturation. Artists translate the saturation difference by adding color, so it's often a stylization choice too. So for the study, oh yeah, if we look at the photo, the reference has a cool light, which turns the shadows to warmer. Yeah, exactly. Cool light is typically what you'll see, because when you have, like, it looks like it's being lit by like a window or something, it's almost always cool light, warm shadows. Because white itself is cool. Many times I want to add some cool shades on a very saturated paint, just go for a gray instead of a blue. Yeah, the less saturated you get, typically you're cooling off the color because you're adding more white to it, and white again is the coolest that you can get. Same as like a super saturated orange is like the hottest that you can get. But again, you're like when you have skin tones, you're not gonna see, you're not gonna drop a saturated, super saturated orange into the shadow. You know, not unless you got some blindingly hot orange light shining off of the skin. And sometimes there are like a lot of the cyberpunk art, they'll use a lot of like really bright lights that are like purple or something, and you'll see that skin like totally be those colors. And balancing that is a tricky act. All right, so I think it will keep the skin cool. In the painting here, you can actually see two cool light, warm shadows. You can see that. So I'm going to do the same thing. The problem is actually picking the color. And making sure it doesn't look terrible. Oops. Right. Make it less complicated. Then we need a midtone, which is gonna be cool applications. Ooh, too red. Too saturated. That should work. Oops. Thank you, Jacob. It's common practice to start with a dark red base and add cooler tones on top. Works really well for painting snowscapes or animals with white fur. Yeah, I've definitely seen people start that way. Like that, so the undertones of that red come through on the painting. It's you said you studied like line decker and stuff, so it's very true to those kinds of artists. It actually doesn't look quite bad. Somehow surviving the ugly stage, except for whatever this is when I flip it. I saw someone put down the darker colors first, then putting light colors to indicate where the light hits. It seemed easier than drawing the shadows afterwards. It's just personal preference. It's probably good to practice both just so you get used to that. In traditional painting, they typically put down darker colors first. Again, so that they sort of show through the color, but they put their thickest and lightest paint on top, just so that it is brighter. I mean, 4 knows this, right? You're doing whatchamacallit, traditional painting, or you're about to. The only problem here I'm seeing is that my shadow color is too light. gonna need to be a little bit darker. So curious how she gets this. It's still like saturated. I wonder if I can do that with mine. This is the part that I always find tricky, is like still making it colorful. Not that artists, you need more saturated to make things more colorful, because people work with you know, less saturated colors and it still comes out looking colorful. So I was just curious why. Why, when I do it, does it not colorful? Oh my gosh. Questions I think tell me this. I'm seeing a pattern myself. I do better and draw more when I'm not using a sketchbook. I mean, maybe the sketchbook is like internalized pressure for you, and doing it outside the sketchbook is just subconsciously less pressure. I wouldn't read into it too much. Just do whatever makes you feel comfortable. You don't need a sketchbook. When I was in art school, we would go and get a stack of printer paper because it was cheap as hell, and just draw on that. You can still keep the drawings, just put them in a big ass folder. It depends on the medium. Acrylics and oils work better when you go from dark to light. If you do watercolor, you're advised to start with lighter colors. Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, so it's probably good to practice both. Go from dark to light, go from light to dark. See what works for you. You're just never gonna know. You have to try things. The ugly phase. We're surviving it somehow. We're gonna go this. Get the rest of this in here. Seems like a over. do the same thing I do with the Kirito one. I'm gonna copy this, turn that off. So I can get rid of this stuff. And then do that. We're used to painting with acrylics, so it's easier to imitate digitally than watercolors. Oh. Designing shadow shapes is never a bad thing as well. You gotta check out blending modes. The reason why I like doing this way is, again, maybe it's just by the way that I've always thought of it and the way that I was taught, but I like going from at least mid-tone and designing the shadow shapes, because it gives you a clear indication of the light source and direction, right? If you go from the dark and then do the light source, it just feels a little bit backwards to me, but again, it's personal preference. Like, it was just taught to me this way. Why is this not working? Oh, there we go. That's how I understand drawing stuff. That's how I understand painting stuff. Like, because when you only have a pencil, right, you don't typically start dark. So you sketch out something, and then, like, the way that we were taught. Let's see. How do like, the way that we were taught, like, if you have this as your head, and the neck, and you have the shoulders or whatever, and whoop, whoop. Sorry, I'm drawing nothing real quick. So but when you apply a shadow to it, right, you start this is not going to be like the greatest, so I apologize. Whoop. It's just literally shadow shapes help define a figure really quickly. I can't do it with painting. I can do it much better with drawing. I should have stuck with that. I did a drawing in my sketchbook recently that did that. There's one chunky person. That's gorgeous. Thank you. 1 second. It's not the greatest figure, but it's sometimes just really fun designing with shadow shapes. So this is just kind of how you learn. So here you go. Let me make sure I can see this myself. Boop, right there. When you start carving out shadow shapes like that, especially when you get really nice poses and everything. It just makes things easy to read really fast. So that's typically why when you're taught to go like from that light to dark, in a sense. Thanks, Jacob. Ooh, my stream. What happened? Stay there. I should make this a little bit bigger. I guess it wasn't big. Okay. Oi. This is why I look forward to Discord, because I easily show it with a drawing. Yeah, no, exactly. Mickey, I do the same thing. I need the midtones in both the background and figured to have a chance of making the darks dark enough. Yeah, and then after some time, I'll pop in the, I might actually have to exaggerate the lights a little more. That kind of go into the midtones, and then I'll actually drop in the little like highlights. I'm gonna delete these for a second. Blend this a little. Boop. Right, and then theoretically, if I was better at painting, that would be done. So I kind of start from the midtones with like a lighter midtone, just because that's the way I kind of work with my pencil, is like thinking that when you work in a sketchbook or on paper, right, like that's your white. You can't make anything unless you have like literally like a white gel pen, which we've used sometimes. That is your white, whatever your paper is. And sometimes you have like yellowy or like cream colored paper, right? So your values already start diminished from the super white. So you have to define the rest of the values and pretend that whatever, either you have white paper or you have like a cream paper, but that is your white. So you have to like start by, or I would start, that's how they taught us, by doing the shadow shape, and then you add in all the midtones, which is essentially what we're doing in painting here. I started with like a midtone that I made my white for the moment, and then I'm adding in the shadow shape and then all the midtones. And then I'm actually, because it's a painting and I don't have to do that, I can add in a brighter color or value. It's advised to be sparse with pure white lights. Yeah, I would definitely do the same. Same with the darks. Like you use them very sparingly. Like even that was one of the things I had to figure out. Everybody always does this, but like when you do under the nostril or under the lips, like everybody is just, when you're a beginner, you're just like, oh, it's black. I'll just paint this black, and it looks super gross, right? And you're like, why does this not look right? Because it's just a really dark red color. Sometimes not even that dark. Like it's kind of saturated, to be honest, in his painting. And this has to be blended and stuff. Actually making it a little bit lighter in some cases, but that is the actual color and not, and it looks nicer, you can tell, right? Then that's super harsh black. And it's same deal with the whites. If I'm gonna do like a highlight, I'm not gonna turn this straight white. Like I'm gonna, and if you have to, if you're turning this white because you feel like you have to, because it's, the rest of it like it's not shiny, right? That means the values around it, color and value are relative to what's around it. So that means if you want, if you believe this is the right color in here for the highlight, and it's not bright enough, it means the surrounding colors are not dark enough. So you would need to come in here and make sure that around it, this is wrong, obviously, and that gets brighter because it's darker around, right? Okay, I think we're gonna stop here. But he actually came out pretty good, and it's not like perfectly in line with the reference. It's designed the way that I would want it. And it's not bad. It actually, it didn't get too ugly into the ugly face. I feel like the Kirito that I did was getting to the ugly face. So I'll probably finish this to get a better understanding so that I can come back to, if you guys weren't here last time, let me bring up, boop, boop, boop. The Kirito portrait, bam. So I can already see ways that we can drop in some helpful stuff. I really have a lot of trouble with the neck, and then just defining out the shapes as well too. But we'll see. But yeah, the study didn't come out bad. I'll finish it. Yeah, the colors didn't come out bad. The colors are hard from photos because you really have to, you do have to kind of change them if you don't want your stuff. Like you can always tell if somebody has studied from a photo and copy the colors like directly because it looks photo-y. And getting away from that, what do they call it when it's Valley of something? What is it called when they do like the animation for characters and it doesn't quite look like a human? There's like a term for that. Shit, I can't believe I'm forgetting it. The uncanny valley, thank you. Yes. So there's an uncanny valley with like studying from photos because it looks too photo-y. You can always tell when somebody has studied from too many photos or like they used a lot of photo reference from it because there's that uncanny valley. And I feel like this isn't quite, it's closer to the photo than I would like, but it's not quite in that uncanny valley. So I'm happy about that because that's a hard part, I think. Making sure you're not copying exactly the colors that you see here. You still have to design the colors in the same way that you designed the face and everything like that. The colors and the values and the way that you're defining the structures of the face, everything is designed. Like, just it's something that you always have to be doing and keeping in mind in the back of your head. Murata illustrates One Punch Man and Mura was the author of Berserk. Oh yeah, both great artists. You guys beat me to it. Thank you guys for coming up with that. I totally forgot. It's also like uncanny because you have rendered the eye whites and irises yet, which makes it look a bit staring. Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know what it. I can't really. I'm not good enough of an artist to be able to articulate like why something looks more like a photo or more stylized, where it has more life to it than like something that would be copied from a photo. Like I can't articulate why that happens, but you can tell the difference. Yeah, I'll get to the eyes. I really like doing the eyes, so I try to not do them first, because I'll tend to do the eyes and then like slowly stop caring about the rest of the painting. I don't know if that ever happens to you guys, or you get to the fun parts that you really wanted to get to, and you're like, oh, gotta do the rest of all these details that are less exciting, like fixing the neck so that it doesn't look dumb. That's the point of uncanny. You cannot pinpoint why you can just tell. Oh, is that? I guess that makes sense. Why? Because they can't really do that with animators, right? Like, we've gotten so close with some of the video game stuff. Like the new tech that they showed off recently, I think, was like 1-to-1. She was like moving her face and you could see it. But it just looks a little off and you can't tell why. Not because you have to add gesture to give it life. I know what you mean. It's like photos suck the weight of people and figures. Yeah, because people can even stylize from photos, right? And you can still tell that they studied from a photo. It's something to do with like values and colors, the arrangement, the design of a photo versus somebody who leans away from it is just there's a difference there, and it's just really hard to describe. You just know it when you see it. I did not. Oh yeah, I did see some clips of that on Twitter. Yeah, it is fascinating and terrifying. Um, oh, Jacob, they basically you can make AI videos now, like long ones. But again, it's just another like theft engine. So it's really terrifying that, they're just taking from people because they're getting videos from just it's not stock footage. They're taking it from people's like social medias and stuff like that. From movies and all kind of stuff. So from people who never opted in again to their stupid system. Whenever I see these things, I always try to think in the future of like Star Trek. You know how they had the uh what is it called? The like hologram bridge thing. The people would go spend time in. They'd have like vacations in sometimes. Um, like that's what I imagine in the future, and it's really cool. Like you could be like, computer, make me an Avengers movie starring these heroes, and make me Captain America, and then you could just star in your own movie and enjoy the adventure. And I think that sounds really, really cool. But like the way that we're getting there is just so rotten to the core. Um, like we're just treating people like shit. We're just not going to get there the way that we're doing it now. I honestly would be able to like to get some sleep. Sorry for. All right, no more AI talk. Or needs to sleep. Plus, we're all done for today. So, thank you for joining me through this. It was, I learned a lot. I feel like we fixed the head sketch and I learned a lot there, and the painting's going pretty good. So, I feel like I'll learn a great deal there. So, I'm excited to finish that up. I think sometimes I spend so much time wondering how to study and move forward. Like, we had that whole discussion of imagination stuff, and I really just need to the equation sometimes is just like you need to draw more, and if you need you you need to get better imagination, you need to draw more for imagination. If you don't know how to do something for imagination, you need to study it first. Like, don't question it. It's actually very simple, but we just question it all the time, um, because we want to kind of know the most efficient route forward. It's like you could also just brute force it and figure out efficiency as you go. It helps to not think about it and just do it. Yeah, kind of. I mean, you still think, but um, stop making it so complicated. Thanks for streaming. How nice progress today. Thank you. See you, gang. Yeah, goodbye, gang. Good night, gang. Have a great day, night, evening, afternoon, everyone. Kareem said it very well. I hope you guys have a good day. Hope you get some good rest. And thank you guys. Thank you for. Thank you guys for joining. Well, I'll put the schedule for streams next week. Thank you all for stopping by. for Jacob, Kareem, Nikki, Ryazaki, anybody else who is in here. Yeah, I appreciate you guys a lot. Send me all the love that keeps me motivated to keep going forward. Hopefully it reverses back onto you guys. And you feel motivated to keep going too. Toki, thank you for sticking around. Marking the Discord on my calendar? Oh god. Okay, I guess I better make sure it's the 18th. I'll get it prepared. Again, it's going to be very simple, but I do want to try to have some kind of event when I launch it, so we're not all just jumping in the chat with nothing to do. Have a good day, guys.